Hello everyone, so welcome back to Spring Break, to all our fans from season one. You will remember that in episode one we caught up with our snail herder from Somerset, Lyn, and she joins us again today to give us a bit of a escargot extra update to see how the snails are getting on. So without further ado, let's crack on. And Lyn, how are the snails doing?
Hi, Matt. It's good to see you again. Thanks very much for having me back. I like that. Escargot, what was it? Escargot? You said escargot?
Escargot extra, I think we're going for.
Extra. Or escargot extravaganza, maybe.
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah. So yeah, the snail. So yeah, when I spoke to you before, it was right at the beginning of lockdown, I think. So that was sort of early, like March, I suppose, was it? And I remember saying, somebody asked me how much time it was taking. I was like, oh, it's just about an hour a day, you know, it's not that arduous. And actually it really kind of cranked up after that. So we've got about 1,000 snails breeding, and each day I was cleaning them and then collecting the pots that they laid their eggs in, and then removing the eggs so that they could go into little trays to incubate and hatch. And then I was having to put the hatchlings out on tables, so then I was having to feed the hatchlings as well. And actually it ended up being really, really busy with all of the jobs that I had to do. And the breeders did us proud. They laid a lot of eggs. So we estimate we've got 1,000, and if they all laid a cluster each, there's about 100 eggs in each cluster. Actually, yeah, I counted up all the clusters that they laid and multiplied it, and we reckon that there's about 125,000 eggs were laid. So if they all hatch, we have potentially got 125,000 snails. I don't know how many we've got at the moment because they're tiny when they're hatched, like really little tiny things. Perfectly formed snails. And some of them probably won't have hatched. And they're all outside now, and they are growing rapidly. So on days like today, it's raining here today, but warm, absolutely perfect snail conditions. As any gardener will tell you, that's when they come out in the rain. So we've got an enclosure now that's got sort of wooden pallets and little greenery growing between the wooden pallets, and they will live underneath the wooden pallets, and then they come out to feed on top of the pallets. And yeah, there are thousands of them. So I do have slight palpitations sometimes, thinking, oh my goodness, look at all these snails. But once they've fully grown at the end of the season, we'll be able to collect them all up, because they're all, you know, they're all different sizes at the moment. So we'll be able to collect them all up. So yeah, it's been busy, and actually lockdown was it was helpful in some ways for us, because our grown-up kids are at home. So I've got a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old, and then our 25-year-old came home from Australia, and he was quarantined for a couple of weeks, and then he was able to come out and help us, and we have put them to work, basically. So they have no excuses, nowhere to be, and we've got them sort of putting out pathways, helping us to complete the enclosure, putting up the polytunnel. That was a challenge. And then the enclosure, we've got like bird netting over the top to stop birds getting in to eat the snails, and we had to stretch that over the frame. Yeah, so that was like a cheese wire on your fingers. That was interesting. But we've got most of it finished, so we're really pleased that they were around. And for me, it just created such a lovely feeling of team and family. And you know, in our society now, we don't create teams in our families. We don't have that opportunity to create teams in our families. That's probably the best way of putting it. And that really occurred to me over lockdown, that we were working together, and actually traditionally families would have worked together, wouldn't they? And it was such a joy, and you know, such a pain at times, but that's a relationship for you, whether it's work colleagues or family colleagues, you know. And it was really joyful to be working alongside my grown-up kids and to reconnect with them. I felt like I reconnected and got to know them again. You know, when they grow up, they become their own people, and I reconnected with them. So it's been busy, gone quiet now. They're all outdoors, or they just need feeding. But yeah, what an experience it's been.
And what do you think the kids would say then, having fully, immersed themselves in the family business? That's fantastic to hear. It really sounds wonderful. I can really picture the five of you out there, all sort of with your different roles. So what do you think they'd be saying now if they were chatting to me? Thankful of the experience?
Yeah, I don't know. Kids, young people, I should say, because they're young people. I think, I know I see things differently now I'm older, to what I did in my teens or 20s. I look back on things and see them differently. And I think that probably from their point of view at the moment, it was a bit of a pain because they were having to get out of bed and work. But I know they will have learned so much about themselves and, about what it means to work in a team. I'm really sort of passionate about that and about leadership and that sort of thing. I just know that they will have learned a lot that they perhaps don't realise or appreciate right now, but that's okay. It'll come out later, and they'll look back and think, oh, that time when we did that, that's kind of shaped my experience for where I am now in my life. I might be being a bit rose-coloured spectacles there, but that's what I hope will happen.
I think that's fair.
That's what I hope will happen.
So did any leaders emerge then? Did any of the three children sort of step up and sort of, you think, oh, any of them surprise you, or did you see any skills perhaps that you hadn't seen before?
My 17-year-old daughter's she's very practical, so that's been really good to see, because I'm not particularly practical actually. So she's a good problem solver, and she will sort of step up. My son, who's in his 20s, he's always an interesting one, because he's kind of like a lot of young men, I think. They're sort of reluctant to get involved, but then when he does, it's just really nice to spend time with. And then the older one, the 25-year-old, I think he's just been enjoying. He was working on some farms and things in Australia. So I think he's enjoyed coming back, and he likes to be knowledgeable. we call him a bit of a know-it-all. So he's enjoyed demonstrating his knowledge. Let's put it that way. So I think
different scale of farming, I'm guessing, in Australia though.
Absolutely.
Size of animal and size of farm.
That's it. Cows and avocados is what he's doing over in Australia. So
very good. So it sounds like it's giving you all the opportunity to, and maybe not just you five. Certainly we've experienced it in the Edwards household, to slow down a little bit and press pause. And I think when Kate and Bev and I sort of dreamt up the spring break and the summer school and the dangerous thinking and all that kind of thing, pressing the pause button and slowing down was very much on the agenda. So I believe with that tenuous link, two have been not just slowing down with the family and the Snails, but actually you've got some plans for something very slow, but something very exciting. So you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's been an interesting time for a lot of us, hasn't it? In that it depends on your circumstances. You and I were talking earlier, and actually you've been really busy with homeschooling, which I haven't had to do. So I've had lots of time to think and reflect. And even when I've been busy with the Snails, I listen to podcasts, or I'm just focusing on what I'm doing, and my brain's ticking away in the background. And that time out, do you know what I've been thinking? I would love to take 3 months out every year to just what I'm calling incubate. Just, lots of incubating has happened in my head. Lots of ideas.
Clearly the Snails are having an effect on you there, because I think the Snails
exactly.
and gone from Snail incubation to Lyn incubation over the last
exactly. And I think there is something about when we're doing something which is just a practical thing that doesn't take a lot of brain power, it's just a repetitive task. and something about being outdoors as well, and seeing the cycles of nature, and being, you know, out in different weathers, and hearing the birds and seeing the greenery and all of that sort of thing, which so many people have commented upon during lockdown. And I suppose I've been immersed in that because, you know, I've been looking after something natural as well. It's given me that, yeah, it has. It's really given me that opportunity to slow down, to reflect, and it's like a number of things have started to connect in my brain. So one of the directions that we're thinking of going in, we've just bought a really large bell tent, and phase 2 of Somerset Escargot is an idea at the moment is a slow school. So the slow school is what with the working title, and the idea is that people can come and spend time here with the snails. We've got bees as well, and we've got woodland, and we're really lucky to have lovely green space and walks around us. And this could be for meetings, team meetings, leadership meetings, and the message is, and the metaphor is, to spend time with the snails, to slow down and reflect and have, I guess, sort of deeper, slightly more vulnerable conversations, but, you know, not the sort of scary, I'm going to pour my heart out conversations, but the sort of vulnerable conversations that we don't have time for in the workplace a lot of the time. And yeah, maybe some mindful activities. It's an idea that's still evolving right now, but the working title and the thought process is slow school, and come and slow down, and the metaphors of nature, and yeah, being with snails. So I'm quite excited about where that might take us.
I think it sounds like a wonderful idea. I think just the environment alone, the metaphor is perfect, absolutely perfect. It's something we've all experienced over the last 2 or 3 months. And I love that environment. You know, I think some of those vulnerable conversations that are difficult for anybody to have, I think, initially. And sometimes there's a bit of inertia to get those conversations started. You know, what better place than doing it out there in the countryside? You know, I think some of the best conversations start when you're just out on a walk or walking the dog or whatever. And somewhere a conversation flows, and you know, there's that. It's perhaps the connection with your surroundings that enables you to just slow everything down. I'd certainly go for a walk around Somerset rather than sit in a therapist room. It looks a little bit like what I'm in today. You know, sort of, what would you rather choose? You know, a nice, you know, beautiful walk, or, you know, getting down to a micro level and seeing things differently, or sat on a leather chair in a sepia office. I know which one I know which one I'd choose every day. That sounds fantastic. And is the idea to get groups of people together, or individuals, or you just kicking it around right now?
I think it is just kind of evolving at the moment, this idea. So probably groups, so it could be teams of people that work together, or, you know, another idea is groups perhaps specifically who want support with what I call entry-level mental health, but it's how we pitch that to people, because so many people don't perceive themselves to have a mental health problem, which is fine in itself, but actually when you start the conversation, people have opened up and started to say, actually I've struggled with loneliness or anxiety, or, you know, that sort of thing. And it's giving people a space, an opportunity to just have a gentle conversation around those kinds of things as well. So it's a bit of both at the moment, and I'm not sure how it's going to come together, but we were talking earlier about, you know, sort of organisations and values and things like that, and, you know, the cultures that are created also impact upon mental health as well. So it all does sort of link up together. And one of the things that motivated the idea for me as well was that a really long time ago now, 16 years ago, I separated from my husband at the time, and I've got 2 quite young children. They were 1 and 4 at the time. And I was really lonely and I really needed some support. And one of the ways that I found that support was I started to volunteer at a local community land initiative. I didn't really do very much because I've got the kids with me and they were running around and I just, couldn't really do a lot. But it was that sense of belonging and being in nature and doing something alongside other people. And I think sometimes it's that doing, so like you said, when you go on a walk, that's sometimes when the best conversations happen. Doing stuff alongside each other, it takes away the pressure of having to have that conversation, but it just kind of unfurls naturally if you create the right kind of space. And I think that's what it's about.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think what this pandemic has taught us and connected many of us with is our sense of belonging. It's always been a strong motivation for me. It's always been, one of my big psychological needs. I need to be in a family or a team or sticking my nose in somewhere, some way, shape or form. And actually, potentially, it can leave people isolated, this situation. But I guess for many, it has brought them closer to the families. You shared your experience before about how it's, brought people together from, literally the other side of the world, and you're all operating there together as this great team, and you've probably created your own culture. And I guess that's, what gets everyone through this. Certainly what's got me through this, my motivation to belong to my family and be that homeschool teacher. And although it's not always appreciated, but you still want to go back and get more because it's a place to belong. So I think that's wonderful. And the other thing that struck me as well is that scale of mental health that you talked about. I really like that. And I think that's something that is, it's such a complicated issue. And there is such a scale from, having a bad moment to a bad year, or indeed it could be a decade for any multiple of reasons. So I really love the idea of allowing people to connect and belong in that space as well, and maybe say, hey, this, so you're like me, you feel like that too, and it's that's a wonderful thing. So I really wish you all the best of luck with that. I don't think you'll need much luck. I think the world's crying out for it. So brilliant. So is there anything else you want to tease us with or tempt us with before we sign off and we say goodbye to our escargot extra?
Yeah, I think that's probably all good. You can find us at Somerset Escargot. So if anybody is really motivated to start to become, an escargot
advocate.
Start sampling. What was the word you used? Sorry.
An escargot advocate.
Advocate, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So we sell our escargot for food consumption as well. So that was ultimately the purpose behind it, and it's sort of sustainable, and it's high in protein, low fat, low in carbs, very healthy, all that sort of thing. So yeah, eat more snails. Really? That's my final words.
Let's do that. Let's get that on a t-shirt. Well, it's been wonderful catching up with you again, Lyn. Thanks ever so much for taking part in our first Spring Break Extra series, and I will look forward to seeing you probably in the audience on season 2, no doubt, in September.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, bye for now.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, thanks, Matt. Bye.